Greetings everyone, I'm Mar. Once again, this is my opinion. As you can tell from the title up there, I am continuing my look back through each and every one of the Undertaker's matches at WrestleMania. From his first win to the cinematic match. This, of course, is Streak-A-Thon, and this is his match with CM Punk from WrestleMania 29, which took place in East Rutherford, New Jersey at MetLife Stadium on April 7th, 2013. Had an attendance of 74,300 and a buy rate of 1,104,000. And of course, the streak continues in this match. And of course, as a slight spoiler, this would be his last victory until he was beaten the following year. This is where he goes 21-0. And of course, as a slight spoiler, his last Mania match would put him at 25-2. Just so you know where we are in the grand scheme of things. This is his match with Punk, which this was the third match from the top. And you look at it, all three of these final matches are main events in and of themselves. This is why they're the last three. And if this was 2-Day Mania like it is now, two of these would have been the final matches, and the other one probably either be a curtain jerker for the other night or in the middle. Because it's one of those things, if you're not going to go on last, you better go on first. Now, the order of these matches, you can read into it whatever you want, because of the three, Taker and Punk went on first, followed by Triple H and Brock Lesnar, which this is the match where Triple H went over Lesnar. And then, of course, Cena beating The Rock by pinfall to get his win back from the previous year and regain the WWE Championship. The championship that The Rock, by the way, won from Punk, which kind of set his whole thing with Taker in motion. I'm not really going to go into that whole thing other than say I had no issue with Rock getting a championship match. Granted, I think they could have brought up a better reason why in kayfabe instead of I'm The Rock, I'm the final boss, even though this is 10 years earlier. I do not know why I'm doing this voice for him. But without that, we would not have gotten this gem of Taker and Punk. Now, this match went 22 minutes and 8 seconds, and that's not counting entrances, because the match definitely feels like it's that long. I'd say with entrances and everything else, it's probably at least another 10, 15 minutes tops, and that's even also with the recap. Now, the build-up for this match was that Taker's doing his usual, I return, I'm going to have my Mania match shtick. Even though, like I said at the end of the previous Streak-A-Thon, that could have been the final send-off for both Taker and the whole streak and Triple H in general for in-ring competitors. But they continued. And then Punk and Heyman come out and they go into their whole shtick. Part of it is Taker is paying homage to Paul Bearer, who had passed away. And Punk is doing his disrespectful heel thing. When he comes out, he mocks him, gets the urn. Some people would say, oh, that's disrespectful to bring in real-life stuff into the storyline. But Taker was old school. Paul Bearer was old school. And it seemed like his family, I could be wrong, but I believe they had no issue with it. I mean, some people are just old school like that. And me personally, if I'm involved in the wrestling business, I would have no issue with it as long as it was done in a certain way. And like this, where they bring it into the character kayfabe's perspective of it, fine with it. And as the weeks go on, Punk just keeps getting more disrespectful. And you know how Taker is like, if you want to, it's one of those things that if you don't pay the toll, or you can't pay the toll, your ass is going to pay it for you. I don't know if he said a line like that, but it'd actually be a good thing for him to have said, if you can't pay the toll, your ass will pay it for you. Something like that. And of course, we get to this match. Punk comes out to a live rendition of Living Colour's Cult of Personality, which is a pretty good live performance. If there's any critique about it, is that one of the final high notes, instead of a high note, he does a grunt thing, which I guess is starting to show his age a little bit with that, but it still works for the song and the intensity of it, and it's metal. Like a groovy metal, but still metal. And of course, Punk and Heyman coming out, and they all still look good. Now, going off of CM Punk's podcast that he did the following year with Colt Cabana, when they were still friends, This is definitely around the time where he was feeling burned out, which would get worse in the following year, which led to him walking out after the Royal Rumble in 2014, which is the last time we would see him in a professional wrestling ring for a decade, and the last time in WWE for over a decade. And here, he's hiding the burnout and the lead into it pretty well, but going in there with Taker, even though he's going to lose and he knows he's going to lose, you can't help but probably see that he's feeling a little giddy about this, even though he's probably hating the fact that he didn't get to be in the main event with Dwayne and Cena. Once he's in the ring, Taker comes out, usual spectacular WrestleMania entrance that we've come to know from him the last couple of years. And this one, I just love it, where it's the smoke, the fog, he's walking through and you see the arms coming up to represent everyone that Taker's put down. A lovely spectacle. And I love that Taker's kind of got like a quasi-mohawk style haircut going, and he is pretty lean for him. And he's built, but it's lean built for his height and all that. He looks pretty good and allows him to do some good athletic maneuvers with Punk throughout the match. Now, given how the build for this match has been, once the bell rings, it starts quickly. They're going at each other. Taker really wants to get his hands on Punk. Punk, wants to take it to Taker. He slaps Taker at one point. Taker goes for a choke slam. Punk counters. And I love this little kick exchange where Punk does his little high roundhouse kick to the face, and then a little bit later, Taker returns the favor with a big boot. Now, they keep brawling, and the match starts off hot, and then it starts to slow down to where it gets a little bit going. Of course, Taker does his signature guillotine leg drop on the ring, which it's not an Undertaker match without that of at least doing it. Taker tries to go for old school, but he's pulled off the rope. And then eventually Punk does it to him. Punk's got to do that in there. And it also wouldn't be a match with Heyman at ringside if he didn't get involved. He does stick his nose in at one point, and Taker goes to choke slam him. And it looks like he's going to choke slam the Walrus, as he would be called, off the ring apron. But it doesn't work. Punk manages to save him. And sadly, Heyman does not get his comeuppance in here. But given he's at ringside for the next match as well, you can't really blame him. They're not going to have him take a bump and then waste him for that. If he's going to take a bump in any match, it's going to be the match involving the soon-to-be reigning, defending world champion. Mainly with Taker, it's chokeslam attempts that get countered, thankfully. I mean, he's got multiple finishers, so might as well. Punk does try to do a go to sleep a couple times, but Taker gets out of it. Now, eventually they go to the outside again, and they're by the Spanish announce table. And Taker looks like he's about to last ride Punk's ass through the announce table. And I love the way Punk is selling it when he's up. He's like, no. But then he manages to slide out of it and takes it to Taker. Now, the sad thing is, throughout the course of this match, that Spanish announce table never breaks. I don't know if this is the only time, but of the matches I've watched recently, I think this is the only time someone has gone onto the Spanish announce table without them going through it. It shows they didn't gig it. Now, without having watched the following two matches, I don't know if that was done on purpose, but it's like, it's a little weird that they're going to go against it and then not do it. And of course, Punk does his signature elbow drop that he pilfered from Randy Savage a couple times. One of them is in the middle of the ring, and he almost gets a near fall with it. And then another one is onto the broadcast table, and that's what does not break it. And of course, this is where we almost get a count out, which they do tie that into the drama of the match, because in the build-up for it, it was brought up that technically Punk does not have to pin or make the Undertaker submit in order to break the streak. All he has to do is win the match. And technically he can do that by Taker getting counted out or getting disqualified. And so that's the drama of this. Is like, oh crap, is the streak going to end by a count out? They could have done that and then really built it up and be like, hey, you did not beat The Undertaker. You won the match, but you did not beat The Undertaker. That would have been a nice little bit of heel heat drama for Punk. Even if he took time off afterwards, even came back, he would have been like, I'm the one who ended the streak. And then go from there, but it didn't happen. Now Taker manages to get into the ring. There's a little bit more wrestling, and eventually Punk gets Taker locked in the Anaconda Vice. This is the one big moment from this match I remember, and it's mainly because of how Taker gets out of it. Punk has him in it for a little bit. And there's a little thing where Taker manages to look over at him, gives him the look, and then Punk, the way he sells it, like, no, no. I don't know. I don't remember if that's what I picked for the thumbnails. Hold on, I'm checking my file real quick. See if that's what I picked as the thumbnail. Oh yeah, it is. So if you're watching this, you know the look I'm thinking of. I know that kind of kills me. Anaconda Vice as a finish, but how often has Punk actually gotten a win with it when it comes to his WWE matches? It's more like a transition hold, but it works for the drama of this, especially since Taker manages to power out of it. And of course, it leads to a chokeslam, which I just love the way he does it, where he gets his arm out and breaks the hold and goes for a chokeslam. But of course, Punk reverses it to go for a go to sleep. But of course, Taker rebounds and nails Punk with a tombstone for a near fall. Now, the one thing that kills this is King on commentary when he's like, I didn't write down the way he phrased it, but he's insinuating that we've never seen that. King, we've seen this for the last couple Mania matches involving Undertaker, going back to his first match with Shawn. That was that whole big moment where he hit the tombstone, Shawn kicked out, and did the zoom in and Taker where he's like, huh? Of course, at this point, you always expect someone to kick out a one tombstone if you do it directly in the middle of the ring and it's not a super one. So it's expected the Punk's going to at least kick out a one tombstone. I mean, even with that, I'll at least give King one good thing. He had one good line I actually had to jot down it's on my phone since I was watching this match at the gym. Taker wants to beat some respect into CM Punk. That sums up Taker's whole motivation in this match. You know, besides him defending the streak, is that he wants to beat some respect into Punk with that. Alright. And of course, the two end up back on their feet. They're trading blows. The referee gets knocked down in the chaos. Of course, Punk hits a high knee. And of course, Taker goes for a last ride again. And of course, this is where Heyman gets involved, along with the urn, and it hits the back of Undertaker's head. And of course, Punk, being the heel, he's got to mock Undertaker with his traditional pin, and it only gets a 2 count. And now we go into the final sequence where it's Punk going for a finisher, reverse. Taker going for a finisher, reverse. And it ends with Taker winning out. And I love the way they do it, where you can see like Punk is still trying to fight out of it, but Taker finally gets it locked in. He cinches it. Tombstone, pin, 1, 2, 3, and the streak continues 21-0. And of course, following this, Taker reclaims the urn and he walks backstage, only pausing in order to do his fist. As you can see with how I'm gushing, this was a match I really did like. I feel I like it as a whole better than the last match, probably the one before that too. Mainly the last one because of the fact that even though it was a decent Hell in a Cell match, the premise, what they were doing it for is like, eh. And for the fact that it was the 4th match in a row where it was Taker versus a member of the Clique, it was starting to lose its luster. And here we get a little bit of fresh meat. Now, given the matches that would follow, and the fact there's the whole thing, should we end the streak, should we not end the streak? I gotta move something so I got my view. Of the matches that follow, if they should have given the streak breaking to anyone, you can make the argument it should have been Punk, or it should have been the person he'll face in 2 matches time, and that is the late Bray Wyatt. Of the ones, those are the 2 that probably would have gotten the bigger thing out of it. What came out of the streak being broken, I'll deal with in the next video. But of the ones, yeah. Because of the ones following, Shane. Shane McMahon breaking the streak. Oh, wait a minute, you're serious. Here, let me laugh harder. Oh, hold on. I need different glasses to laugh harder at that. Enough of that. You see my point with that. It's like Shane McMahon breaking the streak. But thankfully the streak was already broken at that point, so we didn't have to worry. Maybe a little bit of Roman Reigns. If they were going to turn him heel, he probably could have gotten a good use out of it, but it took them a couple more years to actually start to use Roman right, or should I say for Vince to start to use Roman right. So that might have been a waste of it in the immediate moment. And of course, how they made that seem like that was going to be the final one, which of course it was the final traditional match in the ring, because his next two ones are really not matches in the traditional sense, so we'll go from there. Now, the only other thing to mention that Punk brought up is that the pay for this is that in the aftermath of events was like, yeah, that should have been the main event, and then Punk was like, then you should pay me like it was the main event. Now I know some people are going like, oh, that's Punk showing he's not worth what he's worth, or he thinks he's more important than he's worth. Nah, especially in the wrestling business, go for what you think you're worth. And if Punk feels that if Vince says that, yeah, that should have been the main event based on what he saw, then he should be paid like he was the main event. Go with what you're worth. And I mean, with his time in AEW, other than how he left, I think the business that they did kind of shows that he was worth what he was worth, but part of that was how long he was away. And of course, some of the creative stuff he's been doing since his return kind of shows that he's still worth that, even the decade thing being removed. And of course, there's really not much else to say about this. Taker, I don't even think he really had much story building stuff throughout the rest of the year. I could be wrong. I know the next year is where we're going to get him having some more appearances, which of course is going to lead to one of my favorite little Team 4-Star references with it. He keeps kicking me in the dick. I don't know if I'll review the matches they had after that as side things, but I might. It'd be fun to do that as a triple series as they go along. Now, as for the rest of this pay-per-view, I only watched the one match, so I can't comment on it. But next time, it's going to be WrestleMania 30. And even though that night we got a good thing with Daniel Bryan standing tall as the WWE World Heavyweight Champion, this is going to be the night that the streak dies. And that, of course, will be next time. Until then, everybody.